The icy, tearing pain was still nailed deep into my bones. The stinking, rotting flesh of zombies gnawing at my limbs. Feng Yu was dragging Su Yu desperately toward the emergency exit, not even sparing me a single glance back. The white jade bracelet on Su Yu's wrist, the one that should have been mine, glared back at me. It was a family heirloom left by my father, containing a storage space. In my past life, she had wheedled and coaxed me into lending it to her. And I never got it back. The suffocating sensation suddenly dissipated, and I gasped heavily, my vision clearing to the familiar beige bedroom wall. I propped myself up on the mattress, fumbling blindly on the nightstand until I grabbed my charging phone. As the screen lit up, the date was fixed at September 20th, 2030, exactly 7 days before the citywide zombie virus outbreak. I had been reborn, returning before all the tragedies began. My feet padded across the soft carpet as I rushed into the bathroom. Cold water splashed onto my face, and in the mirror, the 19-year-old girl had smooth, fair skin, without the gaunt, sallow, scarred appearance from 2 years in the apocalypse. I raised my hand to touch my middle finger, and the white jade bracelet lay quietly against my skin. In my past life, this very bracelet was what Su Yu repeatedly asked to borrow, claiming she needed accessories for a school competition. I softened and lent it to her, losing the storage space forever. I strode quickly into the kitchen and opened the fridge. Packed with ingredients, memories of 2 years of hunger and sporadic meals in the apocalypse surged back. I tore open a sandwich, ham, and cream cake, stuffing them into my stomach. The long-lost warmth in my gut dulled the chill of near death. Finally, there was a chilled watermelon left. I pulled out a fruit knife from the side and cut it in half. But the blade slipped, and the sharp tip sliced straight into my middle finger. Warm blood trickled down my fingertip, soaking completely into the white jade bracelet. My vision suddenly went black, and the next second I stood in an empty, enclosed space. The length and width combined were over 500 square meters, with a ceiling height of 3 meters. And the surroundings were completely clean with no clutter. With a thought, I silently commanded the fruit knife to retract, and the tool in my hand vanished instantly. When I thought to retrieve it, the knife landed steadily back in my palm. I then looked at the sliced watermelon on the counter. With a flicker of intention, the watermelon disappeared into thin air, and when I summoned it again, it still carried a cool, moist chill. The spatial storage ability had indeed returned to me. In my past life, Su Yu and her boyfriend Feng Yu managed to stockpile supplies and survive amidst the zombie horde solely because of the jade bracelet space they had stolen. I wiped the wound on my finger clean, fully stored the jade bracelet into the space, and would never give Su Yu a chance to touch it again. I retrieved all the savings from the bedroom storage cabinets, even 100,000 in cash neatly packed into a backpack, along with 2 property deeds bearing my name. One was an apartment my mother bought for my schooling, and the other was a house obtained from compensation for my father's car accident, now occupied by my uncle's family under the pretense of caretaking. In reality, they had lived there for years, draining the assets of my mother and me. There was also an old villa in the hidden garden estate on the outskirts of Licheng, a property passed down from my grandfather, which I couldn't sell for now. In the later stages of the apocalypse, this area would be designated as an official safety base, so keeping it was a lifeline. I called my mother, and the gentle voice came through the receiver, suppressing the overwhelming hatred from witnessing her corpse in my past life. I calmly told her I would visit home on the weekend, citing the frequent home invasion robberies online as an excuse to renovate and reinforce the old villa. I planned to install electric fences, 5 layers of bulletproof tempered glass, whole house underfloor heating, a high-power generator, and a large-capacity water tank. My mother agreed without a moment's hesitation. After hanging up, I immediately contacted a local construction team in Licheng, offering 4 times the usual labor cost and demanding that all protective renovations be completed within 3 days. I transferred a 200,000 yuan deposit directly. The foreman marveled at my generous spending and expedited the dispatch of workers and materials to the villa for surveying and construction. I opened my computer and meticulously listed a stockpile of supplies. Precisely planning the 500 square meter space. 100 square meters were allocated to the grain and oil staple area, including rice, flour, noodles, self-heating meals, and various snacks and dried goods. Another 100 square meters were set aside for water storage, with bottled purified water, canned drinks, milk, and daily use water stacked separately. 50 square meters were designated for seasonal clothing, where I bulk purchased clothes, shoes, socks, bedding, and warm weather gear for my mother and myself, along with extra ready-made garments for men, women, and children of all ages. 50 square meters became a dedicated medicine zone, stocked with cold and fever remedies, trauma supplies, antibiotics, disinfectants, and Chinese and Western medicinal herbs. 100 square meters were used for supplies, storing an RV, an off-road vehicle, a motorcycle, and 3 assault boats, along with sufficient gasoline and diesel. The remaining 100 square meters were reserved for protective weapons, with baseball bats, military crossbows, entrenching tools, stun batons, pepper spray, and standard knives arranged in separate sections. Relying solely on myself for procurement was too slow, so I rented a large 1,000 square meter warehouse on the outskirts of Licheng online. I contacted 6 agents, prepaying each 10,000 yuan in compensation, and assigned them tasks for purchasing grain, water, daily necessities, and clothing. Since medicine and fuel were controlled items, I added an extra 20,000 yuan subsidy to the responsible agents. I uniformly informed them that it was a company bulk purchase with a 1,000,000 yuan budget, requiring all goods to be delivered to the warehouse within 3 days. After online verification of the supplies, I would settle the remaining balance and agency fees. I avoided any in-person meetings with the agents, completing all communication and transfers online to mitigate the risk of exposing the massive stockpile. All appliances and daily necessities in the apartment were stored in the space. I listed 2 idle properties for urgent sale through agents at a low price, 40 below market value, just to quickly cash out. The handover was set for 6 days later, precisely 1 day before the apocalypse, leaving my uncle's family, who had seized my compensation house, homeless. I gathered my property deed and ID card, ready to head out to meet the agent. As I reached the intersection downstairs from my apartment, a familiar figure caught my eye. Su Yuyu was intimately clinging to Feng Yu's arm, tiptoeing to act coy, their gestures close and affectionate. I pulled out my phone and took several clear photos, capturing both their appearances and actions in full. Feng Yu caught sight of me from the corner of his eye, hastily pushed Su Yuyu away, and strode quickly toward me, with Su Yuyu following closely behind. Before either of them could speak, I raised my hand and slapped Feng Yu across the cheek with all my strength, leaving a distinct red mark instantly. Su Yuyu gasped and tried to step in to stop me, but I swung my other hand and landed a slap on her face with undiminished force. A flicker of malice surged in Feng Yu's eyes, but restrained by the flow of people on campus. He forced down his anger and pretended to explain that they had just coincidentally met and were coming to find me. Su Yuyu rubbed her cheek, feigning grievance as tears welled up, and reached out to touch the spot on my middle finger where the jade bracelet used to be. Bringing up the old excuse about borrowing it for a competition, I cut straight to the chase, saying that if she wanted the jade bracelet, she would have to kneel and beg me. Su Yuyu's face shifted through several expressions as she secretly glanced at Feng Yu, hesitating to lower herself. In my heart, I was already certain Su Yuyu, like me, had been reborn with memories of her past life. She knew the jade bracelet concealed a storage space, and to seize that opportunity, she was willing to endure those 2 slaps. I broke up with him on the spot, turned around, and hailed a taxi to leave. Logging into the tablet, I synced Feng Yu's social media account, and the full chat history was laid out before me. Su Yuyu, after being reborn, had taken the initiative to seduce Feng Yu, offering $1 million as a stake and promising to accompany him through the 5 years of the apocalypse. Plotting together to swindle me out of my storage jade bracelet. I took screenshots of the chat history and the intimate photos taken at the intersection, uploaded them all to the campus forum, and captioned them exposing my boyfriend and best friend's secret collusion. Within minutes, the forum comments exploded, and the two became the laughingstock of the entire school. The taxi arrived at the car dealership. I rented a Hummer for a week, paid the deposit and rental fee, and drove to a large agricultural wholesale market. I ordered 100 bags of each type of vegetable and fruit seed, 500 snakeskin bags each of potatoes, cabbage, and various melons and fruits. I contacted the restaurants I frequently visited and pre-ordered 500 portions of each signature dish, arranging for delivery to the rented warehouse at 10 o'clock at night. I placed bulk orders for rice, flour, cooking oil, livestock and poultry meat, and seasonings like salt and sauce, and ordered 10 tons of bottled drinking water from the water plant. Along the way, I visited pharmacies in the city one by one, clearing the shelves of common Western medicines and wound care supplies. At offline outdoor stores, I purchased all the cold weapons and protective gear on my list. By evening, I received confirmation messages from the intermediaries one after another, transferred the full payment, and arrived at the suburban warehouse at 11 o'clock at night. The warehouse keeper had already left early as per my instructions. Opening the warehouse door, I was met with a mountain of supplies filling my view. Standing in the center of the warehouse, I focused my mind, and in an instant, all the supplies were absorbed into the space, leaving the warehouse completely empty. Locking the warehouse door, I casually tossed the keys onto the passenger seat of the Hummer and drove onto the highway heading to Lee City. Less than 30 minutes into the drive, a heavy truck was parked sideways across the road ahead. The piercing roars of zombies cut through the night. The mutation had arrived ahead of schedule. The national highway blocked by a horizontally parked truck came to a complete standstill. I slammed on the brakes, the Hummer's body shuddering violently. Before I could catch my breath, a swift-moving zombie slammed into the front windshield, its grayish-white, rotting face pressed tightly against the glass, accompanied by a constant, foul-smelling roar. My nerves taut. I immediately pulled a sharp fruit knife from my space, pushed open the car door, sidestepped, and thrust it fiercely into the zombie's head. The zombie collapsed stiffly to the ground. Dense gunfire rang out behind me as a large horde of zombies converged along the national highway toward my direction. I turned and sprinted backward. A white sedan screeched to a halt beside me. The passenger door swung open, and a cold, low male voice urged me to get in quickly and retreat. I bent down and climbed into the car, glancing up at the man in the driver's seat. His short, neat hair paired with a white shirt, his features deep and handsome, exuded no trace of panic in the face of the zombies. The man introduced himself as Song Shinji, his destination also being Lee City. I offered to split the gas money and hitch a ride back with him. Before I could finish speaking, 2 military trucks sped past us, with a swarm of zombies in hot pursuit. A soldier leaned out of the window, waving for us to take shelter in the gas station ahead. As soon as we drove into the gas station area, 2 communication soldiers rushed over, urgently informing everyone that the military planned to detonate the gas station to kill the zombies and that we should evacuate immediately from behind the supermarket. I immediately spoke up, saying I knew how to use a blade and could help fight the zombies. The young communication soldier directly handed me a military pistol. Song Shinji took the gun, grabbed my wrist, and led the 2 gas station employees and 2 signal soldiers in a frantic dash toward the back door. Right behind us, a military truck slammed heavily into the supermarket entrance, and a flood of zombies poured in. Among them, a bluish, mutated zombie leaped onto the roof of the truck, moving far faster than ordinary zombies. 2 soldiers who couldn't escape in time were instantly overwhelmed by the horde. Song Shinji raised his gun, aimed at the blue zombie's eye socket, and pulled the trigger. A piercing shriek echoed through the gas station. He gripped my wrist, vaulted over the wall, and ran toward the river behind us. Explosions roared one after another from behind. The gas station's fuel tank had detonated a second time. The massive shockwave sent all of us crashing into the icy river. The swift current swept our bodies downstream. The back of my head slammed into a ROCK on the riverbed, and a sharp pain shot through me before I completely lost consciousness. During my coma, fragmented images flooded my mind. At the hidden garden villa in Licheng, my uncle and cousin were the only ones alive. But my mother was nowhere to be found. My uncle vaguely claimed that my mother and aunt had gone out to search for food and never returned. The backyard of the villa was littered with glaring white bones. In my past life, my uncle's family had pushed my mother out to feed the zombies, hoarding all our supplies to survive. I snapped my eyes open, my gaze landing on the bedroom of an unfamiliar house. Song Shinji was holding a cotton swab, tending to the wound on my forehead. A glass of warm water sat by the bed. Lu Yun, the female employee from the neighboring gas station, brought over a bowl of hot porridge and told me that Song Shinji, ignoring the zombies wandering along the way, had gone alone to the village clinic to fetch painkillers and had hooked me up to an 4-drip to maintain my strength. I thanked Song Shinji and promised to grant him a favor in the future, as long as it was within my ability. Song Shinji chuckled and asked if I truly had no memory of him at all. I carefully searched my past memories but found no trace of him. He then brought up childhood memories. We had both lived in the Hidden Garden Villa district as children. With him 3 grades above me, he often walked me to and from elementary school. Later, his family moved to the capital, and we only reunited after many years. Song Shinji detailed what happened after I lost consciousness. The explosion had cleared the ordinary zombies around the gas station, but the cyan mutant zombie, the virus's host, survived. The blast woke up residents along the road, causing a large number of ordinary people to mutate into zombies, and the spread of the virus spiraled completely out of control. The 6 of us who escaped together were swept apart by the river's current, leaving only us, 2 signalmen named Li Qi and Lu Hui, and the gas station employees Lu Yun and Wang Feng. Everyone had varying degrees of scrapes and bruises, but only I suffered a head injury and fell unconscious. With nowhere else to go, we had no choice but to seek help from Grandpa Li, who lived alone by the roadside. The kind-hearted old man took us in, my grandmother and me, while everyone else was chatting. I quietly slipped into the kitchen, took out 4 bags of rice and 2 cases of drinking water from my space, and hid them in the cupboard. I warned Grandpa Li that in the apocalypse, people's hearts were treacherous, and no matter who knocked on the door, he should not open it. The supplies were enough for him and his 7-year-old grandson to live comfortably for months. After resting, we set out together to find a means of transportation. Passing by a hardware store on the street, we split up to pick out self-defense tools. The 2 soldiers, Song Shinji and I, each took a kitchen knife, while Lu Yun and Wang Feng, afraid of blades, only chose steel pipes for protection, to avoid attracting zombies with gunfire. We all agreed never to use firearms unless it was a life-or-death situation. The national highway was sparsely populated, with scattered zombies approaching by scent. Our group of 6 advanced in a coordinated formation. The soldier led the way. Song Shinji and Wang Feng guarded the flanks, while Lu Yun and I walked in the middle. Suddenly, a low growl came from behind. Without warning, Song Shinji turned and swung his blade, cutting down a zombie lunging at me from the rear. Lu Yun screamed in fright, and the piercing sound drew all nearby zombies toward us. A large horde of zombies blocked our path from both sides of the road. We quickened our pace to break through. Wang Feng, timid and cowardly, hid directly in front of Lu Yun, just as a zombie lunged at her. I yanked the woman to my side and stayed behind alone, slashing at the pursuers with my blade. The relentless fighting drained our stamina. The kitchen knife's edge was completely blunted. The zombies pressed closer, and in the distance, gunfire erupted from the military. The noise spurred the zombies, doubling their speed. A zombie suddenly lunged at me. Song Shinji reached out and pulled me to his side, blocking the attack. In the chaos, Wang Feng was exposed before the zombies, and his arm was torn off by a bite. blood gushing out. He was quickly engulfed by the horde. Lu Yun only stared at the approaching military, paying no attention to her fallen comrade. I turned to look at Wang Feng, whose skin was rapidly turning gray and mutating. After becoming a zombie, he charged straight at me even though Lu Yun was closer. His target was still me. I immediately swapped for a new kitchen knife from my space and severed the mutated Wang Feng's neck with one strike. I continued running with the group. Ahead, over a dozen military trucks were neatly parked, with soldiers methodically shooting the zombies along the road. Strangely, all bullets avoided the heads. The zombies fell but weren't completely dead, they were only temporarily incapacitated. The soldiers uniformly carried the bodies to barriers on both sides of the road for isolation. Arriving at the temporary quarantine tent, we underwent a full-body virus test and, after 24 hours of isolation observation, signed a national confidentiality agreement before being allowed to leave. It was only then that I fully understood. The apocalypse was not set to break out in 7 days as originally planned. The virus had already spread quietly. The authorities had imposed an early lockdown. And the mutated zombies had a special mechanism that made ordinary gunfire ineffective in killing them. The journey had been delayed by 2 full days, leaving only 4 days until the originally scheduled apocalypse. The deadline for warehouse inventory acceptance had arrived. I briefly said goodbye to Song Shenji, agreeing to exchange contact information later, and rented a new car alone to head to the suburban warehouse. I communicated with the intermediary entirely online, confirmed that all supplies had been stored, settled the final payment and the intermediary's fee, and after all personnel had left, I entered the warehouse and stored all the supplies into my space. After finishing up, I was about to drive back when I felt a burning gaze on my back. I suddenly turned around, but the road was empty with no one in sight. I circled the warehouse twice to check, yet still found no trace. A sense of crisis lingered in my mind. But I had to set aside my doubts for now and drive back to Li City's Inyuan Villa district. I arrived at the neighborhood in the evening. A truck was parked in front of Song Shenji's house, unloading daily necessities. Seeing me stop, he took the initiative to come over and exchange phone numbers. The 3-day reinforcement project for my own villa was fully completed. As I pushed open the door, my mother, wearing an apron, was preparing dinner in the kitchen. The warm light fell on her, and the pain of losing my loved ones in my past life surged up. I quickly stepped forward and hugged my mother tightly, unable to stop my eyes from reddening. After dinner, I pulled my mother to sit on the living room sofa, pondered for a moment, and then laid out my entire past life experience in full detail. From the outbreak of the apocalypse, fleeing together with my boyfriend Su Yuyu, to being pushed to feed the zombies in front of the safe base, the heirloom jade bracelet being tricked away by Su Yuyu, and my mother being betrayed and killed by my uncle's family. I recounted every brutal truth to her without missing a word. At first, my mother thought I was just having a terrifying nightmare and gently patted my back to comfort me. Until I moved my mind and took out a whole box of fresh fruit and a set of protective knives from my space. Appearing out of thin air on the living room coffee table, my mother's pupils contracted sharply. And she finally believed in the reality of the apocalypse I spoke of. I then pulled out my phone to play the zombie video I had filmed during the highway attack, telling her that in 4 days, the virus would sweep across the country, and when that happened, order would collapse, and the dark side of human nature would be fully exposed. I brought up how my uncle's family had long occupied the compensation property left by my father, and how in my past life, they had betrayed my mother to save themselves. My mother was silent for a long time, then reached out and took my hand, telling me that no matter what happened in the future, she would always stand by my side and no longer sacrifice herself for the sake of family ties. Over the next 4 days, my mother and I divided the work to organize the villa's supplies, setting aside 1/3 of the food and daily necessities from my space and storing them in the villa's storage room, pretending to be ordinary stockpiling to avoid exposing the secret of the space. The villa's outer wall electric grid, bulletproof glass, independent generator, and water storage tank were all debugged and ready, with 24-hour power and alert systems. The main door was fitted with multiple anti-theft locks. And the perimeter wall was equipped with sensor alarm devices that would trigger a piercing alarm and release a weak electric current the moment someone attempted to climb over. On the afternoon of September 26, 2030, the agent completed the delivery of the 2 properties as scheduled. My uncle's family lost their residence, with piles of luggage stacked outside the villa's entrance. Su Yuyu, Uncle Su Rong, Aunt, and my cousin Su Wen pounded on the door together, their angry shouts clearly audible through the door panel. I opened the villa's main door holding a solid baseball bat. Su Rong raised his hand to push me, and I swung the bat, striking hard at his outstretched arm. He hurriedly dodged behind my cousin Su Wen, cursing me as cold-blooded and unfilial, accusing me of even laying hands on my own uncle. I publicly exposed his past affair during his marriage at the Bentley Hotel years ago, a story Su Yuyu had casually told me in my past life to gain sympathy. Upon hearing the full account, my aunt's face turned pale instantly, and her gaze at Su Rong was filled with disappointment and resentment. Enraged and humiliated, Su Rong reached for the bat in my hand. I pulled out the kitchen knife tucked at my waist and held it in front of me. My aunt stepped back half a pace, a seed of marital discord already planted in her heart. I stepped back and closed the door. Outside, a fierce argument erupted. Su Rong and my aunt blamed each other, while Su Yuyu tried to mediate. But the family's rift had already formed. Within half an hour, the door was pounded again. Su Yuyu's urgent voice came through, claiming she had a crucial item that could save the situation and wanted to negotiate with me alone. I didn't open the door. Instead, I hung a high-power looping speaker outside, playing recordings on repeat of Su Rong's affair, Su Yuyu seducing my boyfriend, and their family occupying my property. Residents strolling in the villa area stopped to watch, pointing and gossiping. In a fit of rage, Su Rong slapped Su Yuyu across the face, scolding her for provoking Feng Yu, which led to me selling the property and driving them out. Before Su Yuyu could defend herself, Song Shenji arrived with the community property management staff, informing them on the spot that their persistent disturbance had been reported to the police, who would arrive shortly to handle the matter. Under the pressure of the onlookers' murmurs and the property management's eviction, my uncle's family had no choice but to drag their mountain of luggage and the small stash of dry goods Su Yuyu had hoarded earlier, and leave the villa area in disgrace, heading to a budget hotel on the outskirts to stay temporarily, carrying the chicken soup my mother had simmered. I went next door to Song Shenji's villa to thank him for stepping in to help. We chatted briefly before each returning to our own villas. That evening, Su Yuyu sent a friend request on social media, claiming she had called Feng Yu and was willing to clear up all misunderstandings face to face. I accepted the request directly, and in the chat, Su Yuyu kept playing the victim, saying I could hit or scold her as I pleased, just to resolve the conflict. I deliberately set a condition. If she tied Feng Yu up and brought him to me for me to vent my anger, I would consider lending her the jade bracelet. Su Yuyu immediately agreed, and we arranged to meet at midnight in the top-floor suite of the hotel where they were staying. I prepared thoroughly in advance, retrieving a miniature surveillance camera, a small drone, a high-voltage stun baton, a special mute drug, and a sharp knife from my space, packing them all into my backpack. At exactly midnight, I drove to the hotel. When I reached the top-floor suite, Feng Yu opened the door and rushed forward to embrace me, but I sidestepped and walked straight into the room. Su Yuyu sat by the table, pretending to hand me a glass of warm water, constantly urging me to let go of my grudges. I shot her a cold glare and demanded why she hadn't kept her promise to tie down Feng Yu. The two exchanged a glance, and Feng Yu closed the door before stepping closer to me again. The electric shock baton I had hidden behind my back activated instantly, and a high-voltage current struck Feng Yu square in the chest. His body convulsed, and he collapsed to the ground unconscious. When Su Yuyu saw the electric shock baton, she instantly realized I knew the secret of the jade bracelet space. Shock filled her eyes, but before she could speak, I lifted my foot and kicked her hard in the abdomen. The immense force sent her crashing heavily to the floor. leaving her unable to get up for a long time. Curled up on the ground, she muttered to herself, sobbing that she had nothing left after her rebirth and could only rely on Feng Yu to obtain supplies. In her past life, she had stolen the jade bracelet. But now all her plans had been disrupted by me. I took out the mute potion made from Dieffenbachia extract that I had prepared in advance, stepped forward, pinched her jaw, and forced the liquid down her throat. Within moments, Su Yuyu's vocal cords were damaged, and she could no longer produce clear sounds. I then pulled out a knife and severed the tendons in both her hands. From then on, her hands would be powerless, and she would never again covet my storage jade bracelet. Overwhelmed by excruciating pain, Su Yuyu convulsed and fainted. With half of the life-and-death vendetta from my past life now settled, I turned my gaze to Feng Yu, who lay unconscious on the floor. I took out the knife and carved 10-centimeter-long wounds on each of his calves. Then used sturdy rope to hang him upside down from a second-floor beam. Blood continued to drip from the wounds, and when he woke, he would face nothing but sheer terror. I installed high-definition surveillance cameras in the living room and hallway of the suite. Then moved to the room next door where my uncle and his family were staying, adding a camera above the window. Finally, I deployed a small drone to hover over the hotel, providing 24-hour real-time monitoring of the entire hotel's movements. With all footage synced to my phone, after finishing everything, I drove back to the Hidden Garden Villa. As soon as I entered, I received a surveillance notification. At 2 a.m., Su Yuyu woke up, broke down the door with sheer physical strength, and kicked at the door of the neighboring room where her uncle was staying, calling for help. Su's parents tried to call for an ambulance and the police, but all lines were already cut off. They could only rely on hotel staff and security guards to help Su Yuyu downstairs to the street to find a vehicle. By then, zombies had already begun spreading across the city. The mutated zombies along the national highway extended down the streets to the hotel entrance. As soon as a few staff members stepped out of the hotel, they were immediately surrounded and torn apart by lurking zombies. Seeing this, Su's father directly pushed his sister-in-law into the zombie horde, then pulled the security guard back into the hotel lobby. In just a few minutes, only 3 of the 6 who had gone out returned in disarray. Food supplies in the lobby were scarce. Su Yuyu, under the influence of the drug, felt a burning heat all over her body and lost control, forcibly grabbing the hotel security guard. The guard, startled, lashed out recklessly, and the scene captured on the surveillance footage was unsightly. At 5 a.m., Feng Yu, hanging upside down from a beam, woke up. Looking down, he saw a dense crowd of zombies below, climbing upward, their fingertips already touching the tips of his shoes. Overcome with fear, he lost control of his bladder and bowels. Screaming for help, hotel guests opened their windows to watch, some feeling pity and wanting to help. In the end, it was the security guard who went upstairs, untied the rope, and pulled Feng Yu back into the room. After dawn, a large number of residents who had gone out in search of food mutated, and the number of zombies on the streets doubled. Relying on Song Shenji's early control of the entrances and exits, combined with the unified reinforcement and protection of the villas, the Hidden Garden Villa area temporarily became the only safe haven in the entire region. On the 5th day of the zombie outbreak, the food stored in the suburban hotel was completely depleted, plunging all guests into panic over the shortage. Someone remembered that Su Yuyu's family had brought a large amount of dry rations when they checked in, so a group of people went to the top-floor suite and knocked on the door, demanding that Su's father share the supplies. Su's father held the door shut with all his might, instructing his cousin Su when to block the entrance with sofas and cabinets, refusing to share any food. Within less than an hour, the impatient guests joined forces to break down the door, looting all the food and drinking water in the room. Su Yuyu tried her best to stop them but was pushed to the ground by the crowd. The supplies they had hoarded for so long brought no hope to their family but instead drew everyone's hostility. After 10 days without food, everyone in the hotel struggled to survive, and the basest human nature was fully exposed. Su Yuyu's hand tendons were severed, leaving her unable to go out to search for supplies, and she could only exchange her body for small amounts of bread and bottled water. Feng Yu's leg wounds became inflamed and festered, slowing his movements. Every time he went out to gather food, he fell behind the group. Unable to keep up with the others, I maneuvered the drone to hover above Feng Yu's head, looping festive music on repeat. The piercing sound attracted zombies along the way. After 2 consecutive close calls, the other survivors no longer wanted to team up with Feng Yu. Everyone deliberately kept their distance, leaving him to face the zombies alone. Su's father and Su Wen were also starving, weak from hunger. As the group gathered to discuss a way out, when Su's father learned that every household in the Hidden Garden Villa district had stocked up in advance, with solid defenses and ample supplies, he immediately proposed rallying a few tall, well-armed young men from the hotel to form a team, break into the villa district, and seize the food. Su Yuyu's eyes burned with hatred as she volunteered to lead the way. She knew the villa's defense layout and was aware of a low gap in the wall that could be climbed through. The phone surveillance recorded the group's conspiracy in full. I immediately went to the Ibering Villa and informed Song Shunji of the hotel crowd's raid plan. Without a moment's hesitation, Song Shunji gathered all the villa residents, distributed knives and crossbows, assigned young men to guard the main gate and walls, activated all motion sensors and the outer wall's electric grid, and prepared to fend off the attack at any moment. At noon that day, over 30 survivors from the hotel arrived together at the villa district's main gate, fearing the zombies wandering along the way. They threw a phone playing noise into the distance to briefly lure the zombie horde away, then charged collectively toward the gate. Song Shunji stood guard in the security room, pistol in hand, ready to fire a warning shot if they tried to force their way in. Just as the crowd was about to crash into the iron gate, the villa's main door unexpectedly swung open inward on its own. A soft-hearted resident in the security booth had secretly pressed the door-opening button, wanting to let all the refugees in, believing that since everyone was a survivor of the apocalypse, they shouldn't turn a blind eye to those in need. Song Shunji rushed into the security booth, cut off the door-opening control switch, and locked the gate again. Persuading the resident not to be so soft-hearted, the incoming crowd had ill intentions and would only bring disaster to everyone in the villa. In the few seconds the door was open, a large number of hotel survivors seized the chance to rush into the compound. Su Yuyu and Feng Yu, slowed by their injuries, fell to the back of the line, with zombies already just 2 meters behind them. Just as they were on the verge of being bitten to death, the gate opened briefly again. Su Yuyu's father and his group desperately fled inside. To save himself, Feng Yu forcefully shoved Su Yuyu into the surging zombie horde behind him. Su Yuyu was surrounded by dozens of zombies, and the agonizing screams of flesh being torn could be heard clearly. Everyone thought she had completely mutated and died, but in just a short moment, Su Yuyu, covered in blood and grime, burst out from the gap in the zombie horde and, before the gate fully closed, stumbled into the villa area. The survivors who followed Su Yuyu into the compound came into contact with the scattered zombies wandering around, leading to successive bites and mutations. The resident who had opened the door was also knocked down by a mutated person. Filled with resentment as he lay dying, he rushed back to the security booth and pressed the door-opening button again, fully opening the villa's gate. A massive swarm of zombies poured into the compound through the open iron door. Su Yuyu completed her mutation but retained her consciousness. Abandoning the injured Feng Yu beside her, she sprinted straight toward the villa where I lived, her eyes filled with nothing but intense hatred. I quickly retreated into the yard, closed the inner protective iron gate, and activated the video intercom to speak with her. I told her that when we encountered the zombies on the national highway, I had already noticed a special pattern. Ordinary zombies were merely controlled by the virus in their bodies, but their consciousness had not completely vanished. As long as a vaccine could be developed in the future, everyone could return to human form. I deliberately let her charge into the neighborhood just now to verify this hypothesis. I also informed her that without eating or drinking, The zombies' bodily functions would continue to deteriorate until they ultimately perished. And I would quietly wait for her to reach the end of her life. Su Yu crazily slammed her head against the iron gate. In her mutated state, her emotions erupted, and the virus briefly enhanced her physical strength, making the crashing sounds deafening. I turned and walked up to the second-floor terrace, took out a military crossbow, aimed at Feng Yu, who was fleeing in panic below, and fired an arrow that precisely pierced his festering calf. Feng Yu screamed and collapsed to the ground, and the thick smell of blood instantly drew all of Su Yu's attention. Su Yu changed direction and lunged swiftly at the fallen Feng Yu. Biting down hard on his throat, the two became entangled, falling prey to the zombie horde. The residents of the Villa district joined forces to clear out the invading zombies, spending an entire afternoon to eliminate all the mutants within the neighborhood. The household that had opened the gate on their own was already lifeless, and everyone understood that boundless kindness only brings disaster. A month into the zombie outbreak, the stockpiled supplies in the Villa district were gradually running out. Many residents, having heard the claims of Su's father and Su Wan, became convinced that my home was hiding a massive stash of supplies. Under the cover of night, they attempted to scale the walls in batches. The electric fence around the wall activated instantly, and the climbers let out screams of agony as they were electrocuted. The noise attracted a large number of nearby zombies, and before the few could escape, they were directly devoured. After several failed nighttime raids, the surviving residents grew even more certain that I held a large cache of supplies. Gathering over 50 people, they hauled a heavy iron gate to block the main road of the district, cutting off ordinary zombies, and concentrated all their forces to attack my villa. Heavy iron rods relentlessly pounded the villa's gate, and the lock gradually began to deform. Song Shenji fired his pistol, and the loud gunshots drew in hordes of zombies from the periphery. The crowd besieging the villa panicked and planned to temporarily retreat to avoid the zombies. As the crowd retreated, a virus host zombie with a bluish complexion leaped down from a rooftop, landing directly in the middle of the group. Its jumping speed far exceeded that of ordinary mutated zombies, and its sharp claws easily tore through human flesh and skin. Continuous screams of agony echoed throughout the entire villa district, and blood covered the ground. Seeing the bluish, agile virus host, Song Shenji's face turned grim. He told me that only by completely killing the host could the source of the virus's spread be cut off. Otherwise, zombies would keep multiplying endlessly. I immediately retrieved a heavy military crossbow from my spatial storage, loaded a poisoned bolt, and aimed at the host. At the same time, Song Shenji raised his gun and fired. The bullet struck the host's shoulder, causing only a minor wound, but the host's incredible regenerative ability instantly healed the injury. The mother entity was stimulated and leaped up, charging straight at Song Shenji on the second-floor terrace. The immense impact shattered the entire floor-to-ceiling window, sending glass fragments flying in all directions. At that critical moment, I had a sudden thought and directly deployed the Hummer parked in the space into the courtyard. The heavy vehicle crashed heavily into the virus mother entity, knocking it rolling several meters away, leaving the Hummer's body dented and deformed. The mother entity quickly got up and lunged at me again. Before I could deploy another vehicle, its hard body slammed me to the ground. The back of my head hit the floor hard, and everything went black as I lost consciousness. The last thing I saw before passing out was the mother entity's fang-filled face inches away from mine. When I regained consciousness, it was already 2 months later. I was lying on the bed in the third-floor bedroom of the villa, with my mother, Song Shenji, and old Master Song gathered by the bedside. They immediately surrounded me when they saw me open my eyes. Song Shenji told me everything that had happened during my coma. The moment the virus mother entity lunged at me, he jumped down from the second floor and stabbed a special antiviral agent into its head, paying a huge price to completely eliminate the source zombie. When the mother entity attacked me, it didn't break my skin. My coma was caused by severe concussion, and it took 2 months of rest to fully wake up. During those 2 months, the supplies I had stored in the villa and the food Song Shenji's family had hoarded were enough for the 4 of us to live comfortably. The other residents in the community were completely trapped in despair. After their supplies ran out, they turned on each other, and there were even horrific cases of cannibalism. Father Sue and Sue 1, who had joined the mob besieging the villa, were attacked by the virus host and were bitten on the spot. Mutating with no chance of survival, they paid with their lives for their evil deeds of looting supplies and inciting the crowd. Song Shinji never asked me about the secret of the vehicles I produced out of thin air or the endless supplies I provided. And I never voluntarily revealed the existence of the space jade pendant. The two of us tacitly avoided related topics, neither prying into the other's hidden cards. The floor-to-ceiling windows on the second floor were severely damaged, posing a significant safety hazard. After discussion, Song Shinji moved with Old Master Song to the third floor, living on the same floor as my mother and me, while the entire second floor was left empty for storing supplies. Under the same roof, there was no need for excessive vigilance. Daily living areas were clearly divided, with each person retaining their own private room and meals prepared separately. Only when going out to gather supplies or handle crises in the neighborhood did we act together. With limited space in the villa, I took out large quantities of dried fruits, vegetables, and dehydrated meat from the space, regularly sharing them with Song Shinji and his grandson to make up for their lack of fresh produce. Song Shinji, who had ample stockpiles of medicine, proactively shared supplies for common injuries and fever treatments with us. The two families exchanged resources and supported each other. After half a month of rest, I fully recovered and went out with Song Shinji to search for remaining supplies in nearby shops, clearing scattered zombies along the way and gathering news about the construction of official safe zones. The villages and towns along the route were 9 out of 10 empty, with most residents already mutated. The few survivors sealed their doors and windows, refusing any contact with others. Trust had completely collapsed in the apocalypse. On the third day of gathering supplies outside, we passed by a township agricultural warehouse. The lock on the warehouse was intact, and inside, a large amount of undamaged seeds, fertilizers, and farming tools remained. I quietly stored all the crop seeds in my space. Once the future safe base is built, seeds will become a scarce survival resource, exchangeable for shelter and supplies. On the way back, we encountered several survivors fighting over a bag of biscuits. They were brawling fiercely, and one of them was bitten and began to mutate. We did not step in to help but took a wide detour and hurried on. After witnessing so many tragedies, I have long understood that blind kindness only drags down oneself and one's loved ones. Back at the villa area, fewer than 20 survivors remained, all with sallow faces and gaunt frames. Seeing the supplies we brought back, they once again harbored thoughts of seizing them. However, deterred by the electric fence around the villa and the guns and crossbows in our hands, they could only watch from a distance, not daring to approach rashly. In the months that followed, Shinji and I made a routine of going out weekly to gather supplies, clearing the zombies along the way, and simultaneously recording the distribution of nearby roads, shops, and water sources. We planned a route to the main city area of Lee City, waiting for the official safe base to announce its completion. My mother tended the small open-air vegetable garden in the villa every day, using the limited soil to grow greens to supplement our daily vegetable supply. Old Master Shun, skilled in carpentry, repaired the damaged fences, doors, and windows of the villa, reinforcing the protective facilities. The 3-story villa remains peaceful and stable every day, serving as the only safe haven in this apocalyptic world. There are no arguments, betrayals, or killings, only the steady, comforting daily life of 4 people looking out for one another. I often take out the intact snacks and drinks stored in my space, and at dinner, the 4 of us gather around the table, briefly forgetting the brutal reality of the zombies lurking outside. A year after the zombie outbreak spread, the official safe base in Licheng was finally completed. A broadcast notified nearby survivors to register and move in. I took out thousands of bags of various crop seeds stored in my space and handed them over to the base's management. This large quantity of seeds could solve the base's food decultivation problems. In return, the The base allocated us a 2-story standalone house with complete water and electricity supply and protective facilities, offering high security within its independent courtyard. On the day we completed the check-in procedures, Song Shinji and his grandfather registered alongside us, deciding to continue living together. The two houses were adjacent, making it convenient to look after each other. With his solid medical knowledge, Song Shinji joined the base's medical department as a chief physician, responsible for treating injured survivors. Having practiced Taekwondo for years and gained a year of combat experience in the apocalypse, I was selected for the base's guard team, tasked with patrolling the perimeter and eliminating wandering zombies. The base is well organized, divided into residential, agricultural, medical, and supply storage areas. The authorities distribute basic food and drinking water uniformly, prohibit private fights, and expel violators from the base, leaving them to face the external zombie threat. Most survivors behave themselves, no longer casually stirring up conflicts. In my spare time, I worked with Song Shinji to reinforce the courtyard's defenses, plant fruits and vegetables, and stockpile sufficient basic supplies. Life gradually stabilized, and everyone believed that the prolonged apocalypse had finally taken a turn for the better. The viral host was completely dead. The zombie crisis was slowly subsiding, and everyone could survive in peace. 3 months after settling into the safe base, life there was orderly. Rations were distributed on schedule every day. The medical station was open 24 hours. Vegetables from the planting area were evenly allocated, and perimeter patrols regularly cleared wandering zombies. The outside world's slaughter, hunger, and plunder seemed completely shut out beyond the high walls. I reported for guard duty on time every day, leading a squad to inspect the base's outer walls and clear scattered zombies approaching the perimeter. Song Shinji treated the injured at the medical station during the day and returned to the courtyard in the evening, where he helped us tend the vegetable patch. Old Man Song was responsible for repairing tools and the house, while Mother managed the meals. This calm and stable life gradually allowed me to let go of the hatred from my past life and the early days of the apocalypse. The base's broadcast regularly reported on virus research progress, claiming that the scientific team was developing a targeted vaccine that would soon reverse the zombie mutation. Everyone was full of hope, believing that normal life before the disaster would soon be restored. Yet a lingering sense of unease remained in my heart. The disposal of zombie corpses killed within the base was suspicious. They were all uniformly burned and buried, with no tissue samples ever extracted for vaccine research. The zombies encountered during patrols always followed the same movement patterns, repeating day after day without any change. While on patrol passing by the national highway on the outskirts of the base, the familiar sight of a cargo truck blocking the road came into view, identical to the scene when I first encountered zombies and met Song Shinji. The dilapidated gas station by the roadside, the scattered abandoned vehicles, every detail perfectly overlapped with the scene from a year ago. Subconsciously, I tightened my grip on the knife at my waist, and in a daze, a cold, mechanical electronic voice echoed in my ears, repeatedly broadcasting a line of text. Boss alive. Mission failed. The scene before me suddenly shattered. The stable base courtyard, my mother, and Old Man Song all vanished, and my vision refocused on the driver's seat of the white sedan from the ambush on the national highway. Song Shinji, wearing a white shirt, sat beside me, his profile still clear and distinct. The truth of the reincarnation illusion crashed into my mind. All my past experiences in the apocalypse were nothing more than an infinite loop of a game instance, and I was trapped in the cycle, repeatedly reliving the rebirth of the end times. I instantly understood that Song Shinji was never a neighbor I met by chance or a kind-hearted doctor who saved people. He was the mastermind behind this apocalyptic reincarnation game. The so-called virus host and zombie disaster were all man-made illusions he created. He watched me struggle to survive and seek revenge against my enemies time and again, treating my pain and struggles as mere entertainment. In my past life, I died horribly in a zombie horde, was reborn to stockpile supplies, confronted Su Yu and Feng Yu, besieged the virus host, and settled into a safe basis, even complete cycles in total. Every plot twist and conflict detail in each cycle was controlled by Song Shinji. When he discovered that I carried the special instance item, the storage jade bracelet, he deliberately approached me, observed my entire journey from the sidelines, and never truly stood by my side. All the gentle help, mutual survival, and exchanges of supplies before were nothing but a carefully staged illusion. As a virology researcher, he personally developed the mutant virus and caused the zombie disaster. The so-called vaccine that could save everyone and the method to eliminate the host were all lies meant to deceive me. I remained calm, keeping a dazed expression as if I had just woken up. Song Shinji turned his head to look at me and asked gently why I had suddenly spaced out. Suppressing the surging hatred within me, I pretended to be exhausted from patrolling and claimed to have had a brief hallucination, without revealing that I had seen through the truth of the cycle. Driving back to the hidden garden villa along the national highway, every zombie, abandoned vehicle, and street scene perfectly replicated the scenes from my first escape. Even the fleeing survivors by the roadside and the trajectory of the military trucks were exactly the same. The rules of the loop were clear before me. As long as the mastermind Song Shinji remained alive, I would be trapped in an endless cycle of the apocalypse, never truly able to escape the illusion. Back at the villa, I excused myself by saying I felt unwell and went upstairs alone. Closing the door, I took stock of the supplies in my space. All the weapons, vehicles, medicine, and food were intact. The jade bracelet storage space was unaffected by the cycle's illusion, making it my only trump card to break the loop. I reviewed every detail from the 7 cycles. Each time, Song Shinji would actively approach me, using his identity as a childhood neighbor, doctor, and comrade to gain my trust. Secretly observing the abilities of the storage jade bracelet, he deliberately allowed Su Yuyu, Feng Yu, and my uncle's family to create conflicts, using them to watch my revenge unfold. Previously, when the virus host was being besieged, it did not go all out to kill me. It was Song Shinji who secretly controlled the actions of the illusion monsters, deliberately sparing my life to maintain the cycle of reincarnation. I recalled that before each cycle ended, I would hear that mechanical clearance prompt as long as Song Shinji survived. The instance would reset, and all the suffering would begin anew. That evening, I had dinner as usual with my mother, Song Shinji, and old Master Song. I maintained a calm demeanor, revealing no trace of murderous intent. Song Shinji, as always, chatted with me about the base's medical facilities and the distribution of zombies on the outskirts, probing to see if I had a quick way to stockpile large amounts of supplies. I deliberately glossed over the topic, claiming only that I had sold off my property early and made bulk offline purchases to hoard supplies, concealing the existence of the space jade pendant. The next morning, I requested leave from the guard team and went alone to an abandoned car dealership on the outskirts of the base. I retrieved a sharp fruit knife from the space and hid it under my clothes, pretending to take a ride with Song Shinji to gather medicine. Without any suspicion, he proactively opened the passenger door for me to get in, and we drove along the empty national highway. When the vehicle reached a section of road with guardrails, with no zombies or survivors in sight and an open, empty view, it was the perfect moment to act. I dropped all pretense, swiftly pulled out the fruit knife with my right hand, lunged forward toward the driver's seat, and drove the blade precisely into Song Shinji's heart with a fierce thrust. The resistance of the blade piercing through flesh and skin came clearly. Song Shinji's pupils suddenly contracted. His body instinctively tensed, and the vehicle lost control, crashing heavily into the concrete guardrail by the roadside. The car shook violently, and the windshield was covered in fine cracks. I gripped the knife handle tightly, not loosening my hold for a moment, preventing him from breaking free and fighting back. The anger accumulated over 7 cycles erupted all at once. I demanded to know if trapping me in an infinite loop of apocalypse, repeatedly watching me die tragically, struggle, and seek revenge, was amusing to him. Blood seeped from Song Shinji's chest, yet a faint smile curled at the corner of his lips, showing no sign of panic in the face of death. He admitted that each cycle, My methods of revenge and survival plans exceeded his expectations. With the storage jade bracelet, I was like an inexhaustible treasure, bringing new spectacles with every rebirth. That was why he kept me alive and continuously reset the instance. He confessed outright that his so-called identity's childhood neighbor in Lee City's hidden garden, village clinic doctor, and base medical researcher were all fabricated. His true identity was a top-tier virology researcher. This zombie apocalypse was a virtual cycle game he had constructed. The mutated virus, zombies, virus host, and safe base were all illusions built by virtual programs. The storage jade bracelet is a special item exclusive to the instance, and only I, as the time traveler, can activate and use it. He initially approached me just to observe all the functions of the spatial item, allowing Su Yuyu, Feng Yu, and my uncle's family to harm me without interference, artificially creating conflicts and amplifying my hatred to watch the complete revenge plot unfold. In my past life, I was pushed into a zombie horde and died miserably. After rebirth, I hoarded supplies for revenge, besieged the virus host, and settled into a safe base. All the crises across 7 cycles were secretly orchestrated by him. The premature zombie outbreak on the national highway, the gas station explosion, and the virus host's sudden attack on the villa all were trials he created by adjusting the instance plot. Even the base's so-called vaccine research plan was a false setting designed to maintain the illusion's stability. Looking at his unrepentant smile, the last trace of hesitation in my heart completely vanished. Previously, I had only pierced the superficial flesh, which was not enough to end the instance cycle. Gripping the knife handle, I pushed again, driving the blade deeper into the heart. Song Shunji let out a muffled groan. The smile on his face fading, he still tried to persuade me to stop, claiming that as long as I spared his life, he could modify the instance rules, erase all enemies like Su Yuyu and Feng Yu, and grant me and my mother a permanent, stable, disaster-free life. Free from ever facing the zombie crisis again, I directly rejected his temptation. Through 7 cycles, I witnessed countless tragedies with my own eyes, me mother dying horribly multiple times, myself being repeatedly torn apart by zombies, and watching my enemy survive by plundering my supplies. All this suffering stemmed from his amusement. No matter how stable the illusion seemed, as long as the manipulator lived, the cycle would never end. I could never truly escape this fake apocalypse. Seeing that bribery failed, he began adjusting the surrounding illusion. Hordes of zombies suddenly emerged from both sides of the road, surrounding the car. The zombies kept pounding on the vehicle, their foul roars filling the cabin as he tried to force me to let go with the threat of death. I remained completely unmoved. My space was stocked with ample weapons. Even if the zombies broke through the windows, I had the ability to annihilate them all. Compared to the torment of infinite cycles, facing zombies heathen was nothing. The illusion adjustments couldn't shake my resolve. So Song Shunji had no choice but to stop controlling the zombies and reveal the core rule of the instance. As long as the instance creator's vital signs dropped to 0, the cycle illusion would immediately collapse. All the virtual construct's characters and scenes would dissipate, allowing me to leave the game and return to the real world. He admitted that he initially only wanted to study the special energy of the storage space item, never expecting my vengeance obsession to be so strong. In every cycle, I precisely retaliated against all my tormentors. The repeated loops piqued his morbid curiosity, leading him to reset the instance time and again, trapping me for 7 full cycles. I had no more words to argue with him. I kept pressing the knife handle, continuously damaging the vital parts of his heart. After a few minutes, Shunji's body completely lost its strength. His eyes slowly closed, and he showed no signs of life. The cold, mechanical electronic voice sounded punctually in my ear, clearly announcing the clearance prompt. Boss defeated. Mission successful. The horde of zombies around the car instantly dissolved into tiny specks of light. The broken national highway, abandoned vehicles, and the distant gas station all crumbled bit by bit. Black and white specks of light filled my entire field of vision. All memories of the apocalypse and scenes from the illusion rapidly faded from my mind. Su Yu, Feng Yu, my uncle, the virus host, the safe base, and the hidden garden villa all vanished. A sense of weightlessness engulfed my entire body. I closed my eyes and let my consciousness drift. When I regained my senses, a soft bed enveloped my body, and the familiar ceiling of my bedroom came into view. It was the bedroom of the apartment near Sucheng University, where I had first been reborn. No zombies, no cycles, no virtual illusions. I had returned to the initial point in time before any disaster had occurred. I sat up and immediately reached for my middle finger, where the heirloom white jade ring rested quietly. Its spatial storage ability remained intact, and the massive stockpile of supplies I had accumulated over 7 cycles was all stored within the space. Not lost with the collapse of the illusion, the phone screen lit up, still showing the date as September 20th. 2030, exactly 7 days before the viral apocalypse would break out. This time, it was no longer a cycle instance but the real world. The puppet master, Song Shenji, had perished along with the illusion, and no one would ever secretly manipulate my fate or create endless suffering again. All the tragedies of my past life and the pain of 7 cycles were completely turned over. This time, I held a complete storage space and knew everyone's vile intentions in advance. Su Yu and Feng Yu's family could no longer deceive, hurt me, or my mother. I could personally protect my loved ones and completely rewrite everyone's ending. Having escaped the cycle illusion and returned to my real apartment, I sat at my desk calmly organizing all my plans. The survival and revenge experience I had accumulated in the cycles could all be applied. The only difference was that there was no longer a puppet master secretly controlling the plot. All choices and conflicts were entirely in my hands, and no artificial variables would interfere with my plans. The first thing was to confirm that the supplies in the space were intact. With a single thought, the RV, off-road vehicle, thousands of bags of grain, 10 tons of drinking water, a full set of medicines, cold weapon protective gear, various vegetable and fruit seeds, and clothing for all seasons were all neatly displayed in the 500 square meter space. The massive stockpile of supplies hoarded in advance during the cycle was all preserved, saving the time and money needed for repeated purchases. Turn on the computer, recheck the material distribution list, fine-tune some reserve categories, and increase the stock of antiviral-related herbs, chemical protective suits, large-area waterproof tarpaulins, and solar charging panels. In the later stages of the cycle, the base will face power shortages, making outdoor power supply equipment a necessity. The previous stockpile was insufficient, so I immediately contacted suppliers online and placed a large order. The warehouse will still use a 1,000 square meter idle warehouse on the outskirts. Online intermediaries will handle procurement in batches, with the prepaid compensation unchanged. All goods will be stored within 3 days. The 2 idle properties are still being sold at low prices urgently. An appointment was made that same day to go to the property transaction hall to handle the transfer procedures. The official handover will take place 6 days later, precisely 1 day before the apocalypse breaks out, completely cutting off my uncle's family's hopes of seizing the compensation properties. While handling the procedures at the transaction hall, my uncle, aunt, and Su-Wen happened to come to inquire about the property transfer process, intending to secretly transfer the compensation property under my name to theirs. The staff presented the property ownership certificate, stating that the property rights were entirely mine and that no procedures could be processed without my signature. The 3 of them turned pale on the spot and started shouting loudly in the hall. I directly called the hall's security hotline to have the troublemakers expelled. Leaving the transaction hall, I contacted the villa construction team in Licheng online, offering quadruple the labor fee for an urgent upgrade of the protective facilities. The exterior wall electric grid, 5-layer bulletproof glass, independent generator, large capacity water tank, full house surveillance, and perimeter fence sensor alarms were all upgraded. An additional underground storage secret room was added to store some surface-level supplies, disguising them as ordinary household reserves to conceal the space's secrets. I transferred a 200,000 yuan deposit and agreed with the construction foreman to complete the work within 3 days. The entire construction progress will be synchronized online, eliminating the need for on-site supervision and avoiding frequent trips to Licheng that might expose the stockpiling activities. After handling the property and construction matters, I logged into the campus social forum and deleted the intimate screenshots and chat records of Su Yuyu and Feng Yu that I had posted in the previous cycle. At this moment, the two had not yet colluded in secret, and Su Yuyu had not yet had the chance to make the 1 million deal with Feng Yu. No wrongdoing had occurred. I had already learned of their subsequent plans in advance. Seizing the initiative, I logged into Feng Yu's social account and simultaneously checked the real-time chat window. Su Yuyu had just sent a message, inviting Feng Yu to meet off campus after school, trying to persuade him to believe that the apocalypse was imminent and to stockpile supplies together, planning to trick me into lending her the jade bracelet. I took screenshots of the chat records as complete evidence for future countermeasures. But for now, I refrained from posting them on the forum, keeping them as a backup plan. I drove to a car rental agency to rent a Hummer for a week, making it convenient to travel between the warehouse and Licheng Villa. Along the way, I visited all the pharmacies in the urban area, clearing the shelves of Western medicine, wound care supplies, and antiviral Chinese medicine. At an outdoor supplies store, I purchased a sufficient quantity of crossbows, electric shock batons, entrenching tools, and stab-resistant protective suits, storing everything in my space. Arriving at the agricultural wholesale market, I replenished various vegetable and fruit seeds, fresh meat, rice, flour, and cooking oil. I contacted a restaurant to order 500 portions of their signature cooked dishes, to be delivered to the warehouse at night. I also ordered an additional 5 tons of bottled water from the water plant for storage. The water storage area in my space had ample capacity. The more water reserves, the greater my confidence in surviving the apocalypse. All procurement of supplies is settled online. The intermediary delivers the goods into the warehouse at the agreed time. After all personnel have withdrawn, I enter the warehouse alone to store all the supplies into my space. I repeatedly patrol the area around the warehouse to confirm that no strangers are following me, then drive back to my apartment in Sucheng. Back at the apartment, I call my mother. My plan to return home for the weekend remains unchanged. Still using the excuse of insufficient home security, I persuade her to accept the reinforcement and renovation of the villa. I do not mention anything about the reincarnation illusion or the virtual manipulator. I only truthfully recount the real apocalyptic tragedy from my past life and the betrayal by my uncle's family. My mother has a gentle heart, and once she knows the truth, she will firmly stand by my side, no longer compromising or backing down out of family obligations. After hanging up, I pack up all the appliances and daily necessities in the apartment, storing them all into my space. No valuables remain in the apartment. 6 days later, when the property is handed over to the intermediary, the apartment will be completely empty, leaving no personal belongings of mine behind. In the evening, Su Yuyu sends me a message, inviting me to meet at a milk tea shop outside the school, using the excuse that she needs a jade bracelet for a competition. She wants to borrow my family heirloom white jade bracelet. I pretend to agree to meet, setting the time for 8 o'clock that evening at the milk tea shop. I prepare a miniature voice recorder and high-definition recording equipment in advance to fully document her entire process of coaxing me into giving her the jade bracelet, preserving complete evidence. Arriving at the milk tea shop, Su Yuyu waited alone, constantly talking about how she needed jewelry to make an impression at the competition, persistently coaxing me to lend her the jade bracelet, promising to borrow it for just 1 day and return it the next. The voice recorder captured every word of the conversation. I pretended to make excuses, telling her that the jade bracelet was kept by an elder in the family and couldn't be retrieved for the time being. A flash of intense unwillingness flickered in Su Yuyu's eyes, and her words revealed that she knew the jade bracelet harbored a special ability, confirming that she, too, had been reborn with memories of her past life. She was determined to seize the storage space. During the chat, Feng Yu pushed open the door and walked into the milk tea shop. Sitting intimately beside Su Yuyu, the two didn't bother to hide their close interactions. I took out my phone and quietly captured clear photos, and they remained completely unaware throughout. Still plotting how to trick me into handing over the jade bracelet. Their plan was to rely on the supplies in the space to survive after the apocalypse, abandoning me once I lost my usefulness. Having gathered complete evidence, I didn't linger any longer. Using the excuse of having things to do at home, I got up and left, backing up all the recordings, photos, and chat screenshots into a waterproof USB drive stored in the space. If the two of them ever made a move that harmed my interests, this evidence could be used to counterattack, ruining their reputations. Leaving the milk tea shop, I drove back to my apartment and organized all the evidence of Su Yuyu and Feng Yu's conspiracy to seize the jade bracelet, instead of exposing everything at once. I planned to counterattack step by step, gradually dismantling their relationship, making them suspicious of each other and turning them into enemies. Step 1. Intercept intimate photos of the couple at a milk tea shop and private chat records. Anonymously post them on the Sucheng University forum, accompanied by a brief text exposing the secret interactions between her classmate boyfriend and a friend from the economics and management department, without mentioning the apocalypse or the jade bracelet. Only reveal their private flirtation. Within just 1 hour, the forum comments explode, sparking widespread discussion across the entire school. Feng Yu's gentle and sunny boyfriend persona completely collapses, while Su Yuyu's scheming best friend label spreads throughout the campus. Upon seeing the forum post, Feng Yu immediately confronts Su Yuyu, accusing her of being too reckless, exposing their private contact, and disrupting the plan to obtain the jade bracelet. Su Yuyu, in turn, blames Feng Yu for being careless and letting me catch evidence. The two have their first intense conflict, creating a rift between them, and they no longer fully trust each other. I quietly watched their internal strife while handling the construction of the Lee City Villa. The 3-day construction period is completed on time. The exterior wall electric grid, bulletproof doors and windows, generator, water tank, and surveillance system are all debugged and ready. 1/3 of the supplies are stacked in the underground secret room, disguised as ordinary household stockpiling, enough to fend off outsiders' prying eyes without revealing the space's secret. Over the weekend, I drive back to the Lee City Villa. My mother has already prepared a meal. Sitting in the living room, I tell her the complete experience of the apocalypse from my past life. Taking out fresh fruits and vegetables from the space out of thin air to prove the disaster I speak of is real. I show her screenshots of the news about the early mutation on the national highway, convincing her that in 7 days, the zombie virus will sweep across the country. After hearing this, my mother has no doubts and tells me she will fully cooperate with all my arrangements, no longer being soft-hearted or favoring my uncle's family. Over the next 4 days, my mother and I reinforced the interior of the villa, locked all secondary doors, placed self-defense knives and crossbows on each floor's hallway, connected the surveillance cameras to both of our phones, and monitored the surroundings of the villa around the clock. The exterior wall induction alarm was tested and ready once someone attempted to climb. It would emit a high decibel warning sound and simultaneously push an alert to our phones. On the afternoon of September 26, 2030, the 2 properties were officially handed over. The agent came to collect the keys, and my uncle's family completely lost their residence. Dragging their luggage and the small amount of dry food Su Yuyu had stockpiled in advance, they rushed to the villa's gate, banging on the door and cursing, trying to force their way in to stay temporarily. I opened the front door holding a baseball bat, publicly exposing my uncle's past infidelity during his marriage. I revealed the hotel check-in times and locations that Su Yuyu had told me in my previous life. Upon hearing the truth, my aunt immediately broke into a quarrel with my uncle. The couple completely fell out, and the internal conflict within my uncle's family erupted entirely. Su Yuyu stepped forward to plead. Still wanting to borrow the jade bracelet, I demanded that she kneel before she could touch it, unwilling to swallow her pride. Su Yu had no choice but to back down for the time being. I hung a looping speaker outside the gate, playing the ambiguous recordings of the two and the facts of my uncle's seizure of the property. The villa residents gathered to watch and discuss. Song Shinji in the real world. Not a virus researcher, just an ordinary childhood neighbor arrived with the property management, helping me disperse the troublemakers and immediately calling the police to handle the disturbance. Uncle's family lost all face and had no choice but to drag their luggage to a budget hotel on the outskirts to stay temporarily. Su Yu, unwilling to accept defeat, sent me a message late at night, inviting me to the hotel for negotiations. She claimed she would tie up Feng Yu and let me vent my anger in exchange for the right to use the jade bracelet. I prepared a miniature surveillance camera, a drone, mute medicine, and a knife in advance. At midnight, I arrived at the top floor suite of the hotel. Upon arriving at the suite, Feng Yu pretended to comfort me, while Su Yu played along beside him. The two attempted to work together to subdue me and snatch the jade bracelet. I took out a high-voltage stun baton, knocked Feng Yu unconscious, exposed Su Yu's scheme to reincarnate and seize the space, forcibly fed her mute medicine, and severed her hand tendons, ensuring she could never covet the storage jade bracelet again. I hung Feng Yu upside down from the second-floor beam, instilling fear to punish them for their past misdeeds in the previous life. I installed surveillance cameras in the suite and uncle's adjacent room, and had a drone hover above the hotel for 24-hour monitoring. After finishing everything, I drove back to the villa. At 2 a.m., Su Yu woke up and called for help. Uncle's family went out to look for a vehicle, but as soon as they stepped out of the hotel, they encountered zombies that had already spread. A staff member was bitten on the spot. To save himself, Uncle pushed Auntie aside and fled back to the hotel alone, causing the family's unity to completely shatter. After dawn, the spread of zombies accelerated, and the hotel's supplies were quickly looted by other guests. Su Yu, with her hands crippled, could only trade her body for food. Feng Yu, with a severe leg injury and limited mobility, blamed each other for everything, attributing all their misfortunes to me. They incited the hotel survivors to form a group and attack the hidden garden villa to seize supplies. Through surveillance, I fully grasped their raid plan and informed my neighbor Song Shinji in advance. I organized the villa residents to reinforce the gates, distribute weapons, and activate the outer wall's electric fence along with all surveillance cameras, waiting for the enemies to arrive. Over 30 survivors from the hotel reached the villa's main gate. A soft-hearted resident opened the gate without permission, allowing a large crowd to flood into the community. Su Yu and Feng Yu were chased by zombies. To save himself, Feng Yu pushed Su Yu into the zombie horde. After Su Yu mutated, she retained her self-awareness and charged into the villa to hunt me down. Standing in the courtyard, I informed her through the video intercom of the truth about zombie degeneration. From the second floor, I shot Feng Yu with a crossbow bolt. The scent of blood attracted Su Yu, who lunged at Feng Yu, leading to mutual destruction. The other survivors who had entered the community gradually mutated. The residents worked together to clear the zombies, while the resident who had opened the gate without permission was bitten and died. A month after the zombie outbreak, survivors who had exhausted their supplies launched a night raid on the villa, triggering the electric fence and attracting a large horde of zombies, resulting in heavy casualties. The remaining 50 or so people moved iron gates to block the road and launched a concentrated attack. The virus's original host appeared as scheduled, attacking the crowd. Song Shinji and I joined forces to eliminate the original host. Throughout the entire process, there was no mastermind behind the scenes. All crises could be resolved through our cooperation alone, without enduring the artificially intensified hardships of the reincarnation illusion. After eliminating the virus's original host, the source of zombie proliferation in the entire area was completely cut off. Only a few ordinary zombies would remain, and no mutated hosts with super recovery abilities or jumping capabilities would appear again, significantly reducing the survival pressure of the apocalypse. After resting for several days to regain my strength, I regularly went out with Song Shinji every week to gather supplies, clearing scattered zombies along the way while simultaneously gathering information on the construction progress of the official safe zone in Licheng. My mother and old master Song stayed at the villa, tending to the small vegetable garden in the courtyard and repairing the protective facilities. The third floor of the villa became a stable home for the four of us. We shared supplies and lived in harmony, free from the hidden schemes and tests of the reincarnation illusion. Song Shinji was just an ordinary neighbor I knew from childhood, practicing medicine purely out of his own will, without secretly manipulating disasters or playing with others' fates. There was no need to be constantly on guard, and it was rare to have companions who treated each other sincerely. A year after the zombie outbreak spread, the Licheng safe base was officially completed. I handed over thousands of bags of various crop seeds stored in my space to the base management office, exchanging them for a standalone 2-story courtyard with its own walls and an independent storage room, offering excellent protection. Song Shinji and his grandfather registered to live with us, with 2 adjacent courtyards for mutual convenience. After joining the base's guard team, I led daily patrols along the outer walls, clearing wandering zombies near the perimeter, planning patrol routes, and assigning guard duties. With precise combat skills and ample reserves, I became the team captain, gaining authority to allocate basic weapons and supplies. Song Shinji joined the base's medical department, treating numerous injured survivors and developing simple external injury remedies, earning widespread trust among base residents. Old Man Song helped tend the farmland in the base's planting area, while my mother handled meals in the courtyard and managed the vegetables and fruits. Life was stable and orderly. The base maintained strict internal order, prohibiting private fights and looting, with violators expelled beyond the high walls. Most survivors behaved themselves, relying on the base's ration distribution and the output of the planting area to survive. Occasional minor conflicts over supplies arose, but the guard team promptly intervened, preventing the horrific scenes of cannibalism that once occurred outside the villa. The enemies in the suburban hotel met their final end. Sue's father and Sue 1, when they originally attacked the villa, encountered the viral host and mutated on the spot, dying instantly. Sue Yuyu's hands were crippled and her vocal cords damaged. After mutating, she relied on instinct to chase prey, but eventually, due to prolonged lack of food and water, her bodily functions continuously deteriorated, completely losing mobility, and she slowly perished while exposed on the street. Feng Yu suffered a severe leg injury with no one to treat it, leading to infection and decay. When he went out alone to find food, he was surrounded by zombies, and no one was willing to save him, meeting the same fate as in his previous life. All those who harmed me and betrayed me met their demise through their own greed and malice. No one secretly manipulated the plot. It was their own repeated plundering, scheming, and harming of others that cut off their own paths to survival. I never actively took a life. All my countermeasures fully complied with the rules. While punishing evil deeds, I upheld my principles, bearing no burden of bloodshed. In my spare time, Song Shinji and I worked together to reinforce the courtyard's defenses, expand the planting area, and replenish our daily diet with dehydrated vegetables and frozen meat from the space. We also supplied reserve medicines to the base's medical station in exchange for more fertilizer and farming tools. The courtyard became self-sufficient, with ample supplies to weather the long apocalypse steadily. The base's research team continued to study virus samples, steadily advancing vaccine development and regularly publishing research progress. Unlike the false propaganda in the reincarnation illusion, every sample extraction and human trial was conducted transparently. More and more survivors began to see hope of returning to a normal life. On a quiet evening, the four of them sat around the small courtyard table, enjoying a steaming hot meal and chatting about life before the disaster and their experiences in the apocalypse. There were no painful memories of repeated cycles of reincarnation, only experiences unique to this real timeline. I often took out snacks and drinks stored in the space to lighten the oppressive atmosphere of the end times. My mother no longer had to endure the pain of losing loved ones, And I no longer had to witness tragic deaths over and over again. All the regrets from my past life were completely made up for. In my spare time, I would take out the heirloom white jade bracelet and gently rub it. The 500 square meter storage space was our greatest asset for survival. With ample food, water, weapons, and seeds, we didn't have to struggle for survival like other survivors. By being reborn early and stockpiling supplies, seeing through the schemes of my fake best friend, and cutting off the greedy calculations of my boyfriend and relatives, all tragedies were nipped in the bud before they could erupt. Occasionally, when the base sent out teams to gather supplies and we encountered survivors with malicious intent trying to loot, Song Shinji and I would join forces to drive them away. We wouldn't easily resort to killing, only confiscating the plundered goods and handing them over to the base management for unified distribution. We held on to our inner principles, no longer consumed by the hatred of our past lives, letting go of the obsession with extreme revenge, and quietly protecting our loved ones and trustworthy companions. The long 3 years of the apocalypse slowly passed. The base made a breakthrough in vaccine research, with the first batch of recovered test subjects successfully regaining human form. The spread of the virus was gradually brought under control, and the number of zombies outside the high walls continued to decrease. Plans for rebuilding our homeland were put on the agenda. I stood on the small courtyard terrace, watching my mother, Song Shinji, and old Master Song chatting and laughing beside me. The white jade bracelet in my hand glowed quietly. The endless pain, struggle, and despair of 7 reincarnations had completely turned a new page. In this life of rebirth, I guarded the space, protected my loved ones, and punished the wicked. No behind-the-scenes manipulator toyed with my fate. With my own hands, I rewrote all the tragedies and ushered in a stable, lasting new life that truly belonged to me.